Hi, this is Ken with the $500 investment experiment. And here on my lunch break at work, I just sat there and invested in the market for the 5 ETFs, which include 5 portfolios that involve 14 ETFs, and we'll cover them later when I get out of work. But I need to finish my lunch break and get back to work. Hope everyone's having a good day. Bye. Welcome to the $500 investment experiment. On June 3rd, Wednesday, June 3rd, I invested all 5 portfolios into the market on my break time at lunch at my work. When I sat there and invested in all 5 portfolios using fractional shares, I ended up within 5 cents. All 5 portfolios are within 5 cents. When I invested in, the benchmark ended up at $499.97. The Grow My Money ended up at $499.96. The American ended up at $499.95. And the Retirement Guy ended up at $499.98. Steady Eddie ended up at $499.99. So when I invested on the market on June 3rd, they all ended up being right at around $500. And in the 2 days, the Thursday and Friday that followed, the market went down and all 5 portfolios lost money. And so that's off to a 2-day start here. But then as you see, the following week, all portfolios increased and started to regain some of what they lost in the following week. When I invested into the market, Vanguard sat there and texted me these notice of brokerage order executions showing that I invested into the market. And on this order, when I was doing it according to dollar amount. And for instance, on the benchmark, I wanted to purchase $500 in the ticker symbol of VOO, and that's what's labeled here, VOO. And when I inputted that in there at the price at the time that I was ordering, which was approximately 2 p.m. when the market was open on the East Coast, and I'm in Arizona, so it was approximately 11 a.m. in the morning. So to buy 1 share of VOO would have been $694.88. And since I was looking to order $500, they gave me a fractional share of 0.7195, and that ended up being what I ended up ordering. And so as I sat there and got these, and when I got home from work that day, I sat there and am planning to use Snowball Analytics to sit there and show the progress of these funds. So I inputted that information into Snowball Analytics and created these portfolios. So I inputted the information of the fractional share that I got, and it ends up showing here the dollar amount that I initially invested of $499.97, and then up top here it shows the current value of $499.60, and over here it shows that it's at a loss of $9.30 in the last 7 days that it has been on the market. And up here also it sits there and shows those same numbers, and then shows over here the loss of $9.30, which it says is 1.9% of a loss. And so it did that for every portfolio. And so here I have the notice of brokerage accounts for the Grow My Money portfolio, and I sat there and show that I have the ticker symbols and the large cap price that I ended up purchasing for each one, and I inputted that into Snowball Analytics, and so I ended up covering that. It shows that I have, for the small cap value VBR, I have a 0.3182 share of it, and I paid $74.98, and its current value is up at $76.79 for a growth of $1.80 in the last 7 days. Over here on the right side of Snowball Analytics, it shows that in the portfolio currently, it has an allocation of 15.47%, and the target allocation is 15% for the fund. And it shows that for each ETF that I purchased to create this fund with. And so down here, we sit there and show that. And so overall, what we see is that the two indexes for international developed markets are down, and large cap for the U.S. with the VV ticker symbol are down for the week, but yet the bond is holding its own, and small cap value is showing some growth for itself, and that's creating a loss of $3.46 over the last 7 days for the Grow My Money portfolio. And then we can move on here and show the same notice of brokerage order executions for the American. And I can pull that up here over on Snowball Analytics, and we can take a look at that. And so similarly, we sit there and show that small cap value has had a surge and created a small growth here for the American portfolio, and the total bond market is holding its own and doing okay, and we've also had a small bit of growth here on the mid-cap index VO ticker symbol. And down here on the bottom, we see that short-term inflation protected security bonds has sat there and had a small loss of 10 cents over time, and that we've had a loss on the large cap mega cap ETF MGC ticker symbols. During this last week, on Wednesday, the government released inflation rates of 4.2% for the market, and it ended up being a down day for the week for the market overall. But then the stock market had a nice recovery on Thursday and Friday, and things started to look up. So the American sat there and now is valued at $494.47, and it initially is invested at $499.95. So it currently has a loss of $5.48, which is a loss of 1.1% for that portfolio, the American. And then here we sit there and show that we have the notice of brokerage order executions for the retirement guy. And we will sit there and pull that up here with the retirement guy. And the retirement guy was sort of my first introduction into investing into the ETF market or into the stock market, and that sort of happened through one of the jobs that I've had. And so here it is invested into the total stock market with the VTI, and into the international ETF market with the VXUS, and the total US bond market with the BND, and the total international bond market with the BNDX. And so like the other portfolios, I transferred that information over here into Snowball Analytics. And so the two bond funds are sort of holding their own and not losing value. But the two index funds that are heavily weighted on large cap stocks have sat there and lost some initial value, with VTI losing $3.47 in the 7 days since I initially invested into it. But I'm sure all those are going to recover, and hopefully the bond markets continue to hold their own. So right now the retirement guy has a value of $496.21, creating a loss of $3.77 since I initially invested, which is 0.8% from when I initially invested a little over 7 days ago in the market. 7 days, I'm referring to the market time, market days that it's open. So Steady Eddie is a fund that I'm sort of interested in to see how it goes, because there's the whole discussion that I've heard about and read a little bit on, that actively managed funds do not outperform passively managed funds that are set up with indexes and stuff. So this was created to have a direct side-by-side comparison of two funds. So we have the Vanguard US Multi-Factor Fund at 30% with the ticker symbol VFMF, and then we put that together with the actively managed Core Bond US of ticker symbol VCRB, and we are going to compare those directly to the passively managed funds with Vanguard of the US Total Stock Market, the ticker symbol VTI, and we also have the Total Bond Market US with ticker symbol BND, and both allocations are the same. The bonds are 20% and the equity stocks are 30%, and we're going to be able to compare these directly over time and see how they perform. And initially in these first 7 days, we have US Multi-Factor leading the way over VTI, and right now the value of the US Multi-Factor is $153.72, giving it a growth of $3.73 in the last 7 days that it has been in the market, compared to, down here on the bottom here, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, ticker symbol VTI, has sat there and it is currently valued at $147.61 in the portfolio, and that is a loss of $2.39. The bonds are fairly equal between these two. BND and VCRB are both sit there and they are up 26 cents from when they were initially invested. So those are ending up being very equal, and that the US Multi-Factor has a large section invested into small caps, which is probably the advantage, and over the VTI, which is more heavily weighted on large cap stocks. So in the initial beginning, the actively managed funds are prevailing, and the Steady Eddie overall account is $501.85 and has initial growth of $1.86, being up 0.4% overall. So over time, that sort of gives some explanation as to what happened. When I initially invested in the market, all funds were right at $500, just pennies underneath $500. And then in the first 2 days, they all lost money and declined here. But in the last 5 days, the last week, they all have had growth from the first 2 days that they were in the market. We have Steady Eddie leading the way. We have the Grow My Money, followed by the Retirement Guy, and then the American, and then down here we have the Benchmark. And I'm sure all these are going to change, and I look forward to seeing how these grow over time. I'm not a financial advisor. These are just portfolios that I have put together for myself in order to track and see how they grow and to learn more about the ETF market and how that comes together. So thank you for watching the $500 investment experiment. In the upcoming week, we had the Federal Reserve will be meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday to discuss interest rates, and we'll see how that affects the market. Please hit the like and subscribe button and continue to follow the $500 investment experiment and see how these portfolios perform in the long run. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.